the Brookes Bench with your host, Brooke, aka Shiggy. And as you can see, we are missing the other Brooke today. So we have Megan. Woo! Megan's gonna fill in for Megan's gonna fill in for Brooke today. We're gonna go over the matchups for the week 2 fantasy. Right now it is May 28th, so we are finishing up week 1 fantasy. Let us know in the comments how you guys did your first week. I know right now I'm winning. I'm blowing my opponent out. Megan's more in a tough battle, so we'll see tonight if she can be a winner or a loser. But we are going to start with a new segment. It's called Beasts and Busts. So we're going to highlight some of the great performances, the great fantasy performances that happened over the last week. And then we're also going to go over kind of the busts, the people we thought were going to do well that did not do well at all. So some outstanding performances this week. We got Alyssa Thomas, who had 45 fantasy points in the week. Satu Sabali came out balling, 46 fantasy points. We have Arike, 42 fantasy points, and then Natasha Howard with 45 fantasy points. Dallas obviously did amazing. And all three of those players are going to be key players moving forward. And I know McCowan should be in this list one day, but right now she's injured, and we'll talk about that later in the video. Some other ones. Breanna Stewart had a 70-point fantasy game. Megan has Breanna Stewart, so I know she was hyped after that game. That was an insane game. And then we got Brittany Griner. She had a 49 fantasy point game. Welcome back, Brittany. And then we also had Alicia Gray, 46 fantasy points. Elena Deladon, 41 fantasy points. Diana Taurasi, 42 fantasy points. I know Brooke would be rolling her eyes at this point, because we all know she'd be saying Diana's old. But Brooke, Diana still got it, if you're listening.
She still got it.
And then to round it off, Jackie Young, 49 fantasy points. Jackie is balling this year. She is doing amazing for the Aces. I'm sure we missed a couple from the last 2 days, but those ones pretty much stuck out. And those players right there, we had talked up highly going into your draft.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the bust. So first, we have Ariel Powers. She's not really getting the minutes that she saw last year. Hopefully that turns around when she's on the floor. She gets stuff done. Ariel Atkins is another one that's off to a slow start. I don't know what's going on there, but hopefully they get the rhythm, get her more involved. We have Sophie Cunningham. She's coming back from an injury. When she's out there, she's a deep threat. So just look for her to turn that around. Jonquel Jones, I think she's still trying to get over that injury she had. Very slow start, getting in a lot of foul trouble. So we'll kind of see if that picks up. But Najee, same thing. She's starting for New York, but she's not really turning that into fantasy points as of right now. All of them, they're all great players, so keep an eye out for them because it could turn around.
I agree. And we're not saying like they're a bust as a player. We're just saying their fantasy performance was a bust this week. We just want to highlight the good and the bad every fantasy week. So we hope to keep this segment going, and we hope to not see the same bust over and over. Because I know some of these players we talked up highly going into the draft. So, and then we have our standout rookies. I think we should point out Aaliyah Boston. Man, she is doing well. Her debut, I believe she had like 15 points. And she is just killing it. I mean, she's a contributor to this team, and she is allowing people around her to succeed, like Nalissa Smith. Diamond Miller has also been doing well, consistent with fantasy. She had 20 fantasy points, 18 and 17. I mean, that's pretty consistent for a rookie. And then Zaya Cook, her first game, 22 fantasy points. I mean, that is pretty good against Phoenix. And then last to round it off, Jordan Horston had 22 fantasy points. So, I mean, these rookies have a bright future. I can't wait to see how they will develop throughout the season. But I'm glad, some of them are adjusting pretty well.
Yeah. We have Haley Jones and Grace Berger also getting some more play time, Maddie Stigras. So hopefully they develop as well. I see some great talent there as well.
But let's head into our news and notes section. We just want to update you guys with a couple of things that we've heard. For one, Johannes should be back and available on Tuesday this week. Let's see how she does. I think she's going to be a 6th player off the bench, but it's going to be a good relief for New York. So keep an eye out for her. She might be fantasy relevant. And then Gabby Williams, I know last time we talked about she was stuck overseas. I believe she's still in limbo. She hasn't decided if she's going to be playing or not this year. So keep an eye out for that. And then also Dejanay Carrington. I know we briefly talked about her, but she has not played any minutes in the last, 2 games, which is unusual because she was a good contributor off the bench last year. I know she probably wasn't going to be fantasy relevant, but it's something to talk about. And then lastly, Aerial Powers. I mean, she's been playing a little bit more because Kayla McBride was out last game, but it is unusual when she was one of the leading scorers last year that now she's coming off the bench. I believe the first 2 games, she averaged 5 minutes of playing time, which is insane. And Minnesota is struggling right now. They are 0-3, and Aerial Power still isn't getting the playing time. Honestly, keep an eye on the situation. I know people are probably dropping her because they're frustrated with her performance, but make sure you pick her up if she starts to get a little bit more minutes because she is a scorer.
She's one that could really turn it around if she got the minutes.
I agree. But that's it for the news and notes. Something short. So let's head into the matchup. So this will be week 2 of fantasy from May 29th till June 4th. So I'm going to start it off. So on May 30th, Chicago Sky play Atlanta Dream. And in this round of matchups, we're going to focus more on waiver wire pickups because you guys know the starters. You guys know who to start, who to leave in your lineup. But these people, we saw an expanded role and are getting more consistent fantasy points. So we're going to talk about waiver wire pickups that you guys should, look out for. So right now, Elizabeth Williams has been killing it, 32 and 25 fantasy points her last 2 games. That's pretty consistent. We found the replacement for Isabel Harrison. So if she is, I don't think she's on your waiver wire, but if she is, go ahead and pick her up. She's a must pick up. Same with Alana Smith. I mean, she is up and down fantasy production wise. But if you need another player, I'm going to pick her up, especially a forward. Her first game, she had 33 fantasy points. So just imagine, it's going to be a gamble some games. Some games she will hit that mark. Other games she might give you 10 or 11. But again, some points are better than none. We did have Rebecca Gardner and Morgan Birch on this list. Unfortunately, they did get injured. I know they were having some good couple of games. So that's why we're not talking about them. And then Dana Evans. Dana Evans is someone to keep your eye on. I know she's coming off the bench, but I mean, when she's off the bench, she's efficient. I know against Phoenix, she scored about 23 fantasy points, and that was with Marina Mabry out of the game. So I know that had something to do with it. But just keep your eye on Dana. So Chicago's been looking pretty good. I mean, Mabry, Courtney Williams, and Kalia Copper. We all knew they were going to be a scrappy bunch. But I think they're doing well without Candace Parker and Courtney Vandersloot. I'm honestly curious to see how they compete against a playoff contender. Right now, they only played Minnesota, Phoenix, and Dallas. So, I mean, I want to see how they play against a Connecticut or Washington or the Aces. So I'm curious to see how that goes. All right. And then Atlanta Dream. So Danielle Robinson's knee injury. We don't know the extent of it. So we don't know how long she's going to be out. So right now the guards are kind of just trying to find the rhythm, like Ari McDonald. I know she's a starter now. But AD Durr, Haley Jones are going to get increased amount of playing time. I necessarily wouldn't pick those 2 up in fantasy because they are splitting. They're just right now giving Ari McDonald, Ryan Howard, all of them breathers. So they come in for a couple minutes and then they're subbed out. But players to look out for, Nia Coffey, Naz Hillman, they're seeing an increase in their playing time. So watch out for them. If you need a couple of points, like we said, pick them up off the waiver wire, put them in your lineup, and play them for that day. The last 2 games for Nia Coffey, 17 fantasy points, 10 fantasy points, and then for Naz, 15 fantasy points and 17 fantasy points. So like we always say, some fantasy points are better than others. I mean, are better than nothing. So those are the kind of names I would look out for Atlanta. But Atlanta as a whole, honestly, I thought they would come out a little bit stronger. And they've dropped a couple of games that I didn't think they would. So I am surprised they are off to a slow start. But I can tell that, these rotations, they're still trying to figure out the rotations. They're still trying to figure out what guards and what rotations work better with one another. So just keep an eye on Atlanta as a whole. But like I said, Nia Coffey, Naz Hillman, definitely worth pickups for, a day of playing.
Right. And then we have the Indiana Fever versus Connecticut Suns next week. For the Indiana Fever, they don't really have too many injuries going on. I would look for Christy Wallace on your waiver wires. That's going to be a person that you can pick up. Kelsey Mitchell has needed a lot of work, another guard to step up, handle the ball, and be an offensive threat. And I think Christy Wallace is the one that's going to continuously do that. You have Aaliyah Boston, Nalissa Smith, solid bigs. You can build around them in the future. Victoria Vivians, she gets some playing time here and there. She had 13 fantasy points the one game, but then dropped and had 8 fantasy points the next game. She's kind of not consistent, but she has those games if it's a good matchup where they're going against smaller bigs, where she can have some upside there. So that's all that's really going on for Indiana. Slow start, but hopefully with Christy Wallace stepping up, they can build off of that and, get some wins under there. And then with Connecticut, you have Heidman. If she's on your waiver wires, pick her up. She's not the most consistent, but she'll get you double figures. And then you do have the upside for the games that she does hit those outside shots and gets to the basket. You also have Olivia Nelson-Ododa. She comes off the bench for Brianna Jones. Sometimes Brianna gets in foul trouble. She's been very dominant in the paint. But Olivia is a nice backup that comes off the bench and can get you, the lower double figures between like 14, 15 points. Another one that comes off the bench is Rebecca Allen. She also can hit the 3 deep. She has some upside. Again, it just comes down to matchups for them, because a lot of times their starters do get a lot of minutes in their games. So I would just look out for that. They're pretty solid. They are 3-0 right now. So Connecticut off to a great start.
Yeah. Connecticut's solid. I mean, between these two teams, it's hard to play anyone outside of their starters. So
yeah,
those are way more plug and play options. And hopefully you pick the right plug and play kind of thing. So the next matchup, Minnesota versus Dallas. Right now, Minnesota, we said Kayla McBride had a personal reason as to why she didn't play last game, but I believe she is playing tonight's game. But to look, like we said on the wire, Tiffany Mitchell is also a name to look out for. Right now, she had the last 3 games, she had 14, 18, and 20 fantasy points and averaging about 26 minutes. So, I mean, that's pretty solid. She's going to get you something. And Minnesota, like you said, is struggling. They cannot buy a win right now. So that's someone to look out for. And then also Lindsay Allen, 15 and 16 fantasy points her last 2 games, averaging about 27 minutes. So just look out for those players. Like we said, plug and play, put them in your lineup. We're hoping Aerial Power sees an increase in playing time, but it looks like her coach is going to make her earn it. I mean, I don't know if you saw on social media what the coach said. Very vague, like just saying, yeah, she just needs to, basically, she's looking good in practice, and that's where you earn your starting spot. So I don't know if this is something personal or if she just sees what her starters have more talent than Aerial Powers. I don't know. But it's not working because they're 0-3. So that Minnesota's in trouble. Minnesota's in trouble. These next 4 weeks, they have the Aces, Connecticut, New York, and the Mystics.
Yeah.
That's 0-7 now. So Aerial Powers needs to be in the lineup and Minnesota get it together. Sorry. Then we got Dallas Wings, Diamond DeShields, no timetable return still, and Tierra McCowan is day to day. I know I'm a McCowan manager. It's killing me because I couldn't wait to see McCowan perform this season. So she is on my IR. Hopefully she's back soon. But who knows? A waiver wire to pick up though. Veronica Burton. She's been playing a lot more since McCowan's been out. So has Crystal Dangerfield. Pick up Crystal Dangerfield. I know the other day she went off for like 30 something fantasy points. She will be up and down. It's not going to be consistent. And I want to mention that a lot of these players we're naming probably won't be like a 40-point fantasy score. They're going to get you like 15 on a good day, 20
Double
something
figures,
points.
yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to reiterate that we're just trying to find you points like for every single day. I think Arike looks amazing right now. And Natasha Howard and Satu Sabali, those three, that trio right there is carrying Dallas. But I know they have they dropped what, like 2 games. Oh no, they didn't. They beat Seattle. So they dropped.
Well, they have no depth, so it's just hard.
That is the issue. They don't have anyone to back these 3 up, and with McCowan hurt, I mean, you can't rotate the bigs out because you have no one to fill in. But I'm, like I said, we'll see how Dallas performs when McCowan's back. So I'm excited to see her.
Right. And next you have the New York Liberty versus Seattle Storm. Speaking about Satu Sabali, her sister Nayara is practicing full and played the other night and is looking pretty good, especially since she missed a lot of time. So having her back should be really nice for New York to have some depth, other than Dolson off the bench, especially with Jonquel struggling. Another person to look out for, Kayla Thornton. She's getting good minutes off the bench. She's usually the first or second person off the bench. She got 15 fantasy points the first game and then 9 the second game. So just look for her. If she's out there on the waiver wire, she'll be a good pickup. Like Brooke mentioned earlier, Joanna should be back and is already practicing with the team. So she should be available for Tuesday. She's already in shape from playing overseas. So she could be one that just needs to be plugged in and kind of get chemistry with the team before she becomes super fantasy relevant. New York looked like they are gaining chemistry. Jonquel, again, just struggling with foul trouble. So just look to be able to play her backups. Then you have Seattle Storm. No injuries, but super young team. You do have some of the young talent stepping up. We do have Mercedes Russell. She had 18 fantasy points against the Aces the other night. Then you have Jordan Horston, who had 22 fantasy points against Las Vegas. So look for them if they're out there. I think for the most part, Jordan probably got picked up in drafts, but look for her. She's going to be a matchup thing. And then Dorkic, also look for her if she's available in your leagues.
Yeah, Seattle's definitely in a rebuild year. They got Jordan Horston trying to be a power forward. You see, she's basically guarding like the biggest player on the court.
She's athletic.
She is.
They're trying to use that.
But man, let her try and be a shooting guard. I mean, let her try to cook. I'm just trying to say. I mean, they're gonna be rebuilding around her and Jewel. Obviously, Jewel's doing amazing right now. But yeah, it's going to be a long season for Seattle. June 1st, we got Connecticut Suns versus Minnesota Lynx on Prime Video. Obviously, we went over those 2 teams and who to pick up for already. So we're going to move into June 2nd. You got New York versus Chicago on Ion. And then we have Dallas Wings versus Washington Mystics on Ion as well. So right now, injury updates. Maisha Hines-Allen, obviously no timetable for her injury still. And it's a little slim with Washington. I mean, they don't really have depth either. But Tiana Hawkins, she's been doing, I mean, she's pretty solid, 15, 9, and 16 fantasy points. She comes off the bench for Shakira sometimes, fills in that role. But I mean, Shakira Austin's doing amazing. So, I mean, Shakira's only coming out if she's in foul trouble or maybe just for a little bit of a breather. But Tiana Hawkins has done pretty well, pretty solid off the bench. So I would look out for her as a plug and play option. But Washington's looking pretty solid. I know they lost 2 to Connecticut. But I mean, Connecticut's tough this year. But I mean, Shakira Austin and Deladon, I mean, they're killing it for Washington right now. They are the 2 solid pillars for them. They just, the guards need to step it up if they want to win. I think that's the key right now, honestly.
And we all know Atkins can step up. So if she can just get out this like shooting slump, I think she'll be great. So then we have Las Vegas versus Atlanta Dream. That will be on Ion as well. We already talked about Atlanta Dream, so I'm just going to touch on Las Vegas. Pretty much just like Washington, the starting 5, I mean, it's hard to really pick anyone outside of that. The only time you really see like minutes is when they're kind of beating the other team and they're putting in like
Mhm.
Alicia Clark. She's getting extended minutes at the end of games. Kia Stokes. So they're able to be consistent in the double figures for you. I wouldn't go any further than that. Raquanda Williams, she's still hurt. She has the back injury. She's day to day. I think once she's healthy, that will be the only other Aces player that I would put in. Honestly, their starting five is just so strong, and unless there's foul trouble, or like I said, unless they're up by quite a few points, you don't see a lot of the bench coming in and really getting you numbers, big numbers. But yeah, Las Vegas off to a hot start. Jackie Young has stepped it up. I mean, yeah, she already got the most improved award before,
right?
but can you give it to her
I
again? Because
know.
she's even improving to a whole nother level. So
I agree.
I'm excited to see if she can be consistent throughout the whole year. Turnovers have been a little rough in the beginning, but I know you've always said Aces are a second half team. They come on with,
They know
after
how to
half, I don't know
close.
what they do. Yes.
They know how to
They
close.
definitely know how to close games. So once they get the turnovers like underhand, they're gonna be unstoppable, I think. So exciting to see. Exciting to see.
Yeah, Jackie, I'm gonna need you to slow down because I have Kelsey Plum as my all WNBA player, but like I think you might overtake her and that's gonna hurt my heart. So slow down. I know you're doing great. It's great for the Aces though. The next matchup, Los Angeles Sparks versus Phoenix Mercury. So the injuries for Los Angeles, Jasmine Thomas, knee, no timetable to return. And then I know Neko had a sick day, and now there's a whole illness going around LA. So keep your eye out for that, because there was a last minute like onslaught of players that all got sick at the same time. So
yeah, 5 or 6, right?
Yeah. Keep an eye on that bug going around because it might change every day. But some waiver wire pickups. I'm pretty sure Lexi Brown's no longer there. She had a 27-point and a 31-point fantasy performance back-to-back games. She is their 3-point shooter. I think she had an off game against the Aces. But you guys have to remember, we should probably touch on this. Matchups matter. Las Vegas is a good defense. Connecticut would be a tough defense. Who else? Washington is going to be tough.
Yeah.
So don't always expect for these players to have these boom performances. Obviously players are probably going to strive more against like a Minnesota, maybe even in Indiana, Seattle. It's always going to depend on the matchup. I hope when we get more games under our belts, we're able to go more in depth on the defense and then offensive percentages and stuff like that, so we can be more accurate. But just be aware of that. I just wanted to touch on that as well.
And watch injuries, because that can cause your player to have a better game than what was expected. So
yeah. And then go get Chiney Agumake. I was skeptical at first, but she earned her right in the starting lineup. She got 26, 38 fantasy points, and she showed out against Vegas. So I'm picking her up and playing her. Then we got Clarendon. She was surprising. 17, 22 fantasy points, plays about 27 minutes. Pick her up, play her for a day, then drop her. I mean, it'll get you something. And then Carly Samuelson, she's also the 3 shooter. I think her performances are going to be more up and down. She's not really attacking the rack, being aggressive. She's more of a spot shooter whenever she's open. But the Sparks, I mean, it's very, what's the word? Not cliche. I was going to say they're showing a spark. Sparks are showing a spark. But I mean, they show a little potential. I know they stayed with the Aces for a little bit, but then the second game back, they got blown out. But I mean, they show that they have them. Yeah, they show they have potential. So that is better than I thought they would perform. So I'm curious to see, if they make, they're a sleeper team. If they make, if they pull some upsets against these bigger name teams, it'll be interesting. But then we got Phoenix. Skylar Diggins still on maternity leave. She did hint on social media. I think she snapped a picture of her at the gym or something that she's eyeing a comeback. I wouldn't put it past her. She's Skylar Diggins. She's a dog. I would be interested to see how Phoenix would be with Skylar Diggins back now with Brittany Griner. I think they'd be way better. And I think
I have to work on the chemistry a little bit, because it's been a while that they played together.
But I mean, Skylar Diggins is going to make things happen.
Yeah.
But some waiver wire pickups for Phoenix. You got Sug Sutton. she's been very consistent for Phoenix off the bench, 19, 21, and 20 fantasy points in the last 3 games, averaging about 29 minutes. Very reliable off the bench. Someone I would put in right now. So pick her up, play her. And then we got Michaela, 18, 12, and 15 fantasy points. And then she's actually a starter for Phoenix. So man, I would pick these 2 up. Sophie Cunningham also might be on your waiver wire as well. I would pick up and play her. She's gonna give you the 3, but she is not that consistent as we projected her to be. We thought she would really dominate with Skylar Diggins out. I know she had the injury, which we thought she was gonna be out for the whole season. So maybe that's having something to do with it. But yeah, look at those 3 names, plug and play them. Hope for some points, 15, 20 points. But yeah, Phoenix, I mean, Brittany Griner looks great. Like she never skipped a beat. Diana looks good. She's still Diana Taurasi. Never forget it. Brooke, where are you at? But yeah, there needs more players to step up for Phoenix to, you know, get some wins under the belt. And then for June 3rd, we got Minnesota Lynx versus Washington Mystics, Seattle Storm versus LA Sparks. June 4th, Dallas Wings versus Connecticut Suns, Chicago Sky versus New York Liberty, and then Las Vegas Aces versus Indiana Fever. Obviously, we went over those teams already and the players that we are trying to pick up for this week. We're hoping every week we come out with maybe a new player that you can pick up and play. I know the matchups might get redundant every single week, so we're hoping every week we're able to pick out someone new that's shining that you can plug and play for that week. We hope that these names, I know in deeper leagues, there's a lot of people that are playing 8 and 10 team leagues. And hopefully some of these deeper names are able to help you in the long run. We're hoping we're helping you guys all out. I know I've already received some comments with questions. I hope my answers helped. I hope our answers helped. I basically talk with Brooke and Megan before I message you guys back just to make sure we're on the same page. But we hope you guys are winning. Comment down below if you won your first matchup of the first fantasy week. We want to see who you know, is dominating out there. I think I'm gonna win this week. Like we said in the beginning, we don't know Megan's gonna win. And Brooke's also in the tight one, I think, too. So we'll update you guys next fantasy week. But yeah, we're going to come out with videos every single Monday. We'll drop them for that start of the fantasy week. And then I know this video was a little shorter than usual. We don't have like an ending game or anything like that. We can't do it without Brooke. I got to have Brooke here, my fellow Brooke. But Megan was a great fill-in. Thank you, Megan. We wanted to get you this information out for this week, so we didn't want to skip this video. So we hope you guys enjoy. Please like, comment, subscribe. We're here for all your questions, all your fantasy basketball needs, and please leave us suggestions of what you guys want to see. Like I said, I don't want it to get redundant where we're trying to go over the same players and the same names. I think we might go into how we think, like we kind of had the notes of how each team's doing. We might go a little bit more into that. But yeah, just leave us a comment. Let us know what else we can add. Anything else from you, Megan? Any other tips?
Don't be afraid to drop players to go to the waiver wire for matchups of the day. Oh, and we did find out that once one game starts for that day, you cannot go to the waiver wire and make any changes for the rest of that day. So make sure you know when the first game is going to start. And if you need to make any changes, if you have someone that's out or questionable, keep an eye on that. Maybe pick up someone sooner as a replacement just in case they don't play. But yeah, just don't be afraid to go chase after points because that could be the reason you win that week. Have your players that are undroppable, but the rest, don't be afraid to switch it up.
Yeah, I want to give an example of what Megan's talking about. So if the first game of the day is at 10 o'clock, you have to pick someone up off the waiver wire before that 10 o'clock game start. Otherwise, you can't pick up anyone from the wire and you have to do with what you have in your roster. I learned that the hard way. So I want you guys to be aware of that. I'll pop up the little rule that ESPN sent out for me because I was confused as to why I could have put a player from the waiver wire in my starting lineup. But thank you guys for watching. We appreciate your comments, your likes. Please subscribe, drop your comments, your questions. We're here for you. But yeah, good luck on week 2. We hope you guys are winning out there. All right, peace out.